Oh no, he didn't.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money?
It's time to man up, America.
Let's do this.
All right, it's the good Dr. J. Adam here on our next installment of Man Up America. Listen, we had a crazy week last week. Still getting levels, still getting tech right. We are simulcast on Talk 101.3 The Buzz and additionally on WTNB. But if you're watching on WTNB right now, just hold tight. We're trying to get that feed up and get it live. But if you're on Talk 101.3 The Buzz, you should have the good Dr. J. Adam here. We will have some guests in the studio today. We'll have the shrink Rob Alderman back in. And we've got a couple of phone calls that we're going to make. We're going to make those phone calls today to some representatives of the millennial generation. That's right, the millennial generation. We're going to call two folks, one from the Democratic side of the Democratic side of the presidential debate, and one from the Republican side. So, without any further ado, today, for those of you who are not familiar and you're tuning in for the first time to Man Up America, here's our format, guys. Our format is simply this. We're looking to take you through the process of how I come to solutions, right? How I come to opinions on matters. And, you know, I had a lot of feedback over the weekend, most of it through social media. Had a lot of feedback from folks. The majority of you were kind, and we thank you for the uplifting and edifying statements that you've made about Man Up America. You guys get it. We understand that you get it. You get it. You get the idea that this program is to face directly things that are in our headlines, things that are a part of us here in America. We know that you get it when we say that we're going to walk you through the process of knowing more about what's taking place in our world. We know that you get it. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I'm an opinionated person. I really am a very opinionated person. But I don't come to those opinions lightly. And the purpose of this show is for me not to share my opinion all the time. It's not for me to give you my conclusion. I want to give you the raw data. I want to give you the same stuff that I had. If I say that chocolate brownies are better than vanilla ice cream, I want you to know why I say chocolate brownies are better than vanilla ice cream. So the purpose of this show is not for, if you want an opinion show, tune in at the 3 o'clock hour, tune in at the 6 o'clock hour, tune in to Mike Gallagher, tune in to Glenn Beck, tune into those guys. They're going to tell you what they think and how you should think. That's what those shows are for. This show is not that. This is a show about life, and it's a show that we use to take you through the process of understanding just exactly how we come to conclusions on things. I think it's important for you to grasp that. I had someone this weekend who actually said, you know, your show's pretty PC. Hey, listen, just because I don't tell you what you want to hear doesn't mean it's politically correct. I got news for some of you. If you're like me, half the time your opinion's inaccurate. Half the time you need more information. Half the time what you think is not based in reality. You know what? There are some of you out there who have an opinion on things, and your opinion matches up with truth. It is true. But even then, you couldn't justify it. Hopefully, through this show, you understand why you feel that way. So we give you the raw data. We're going to do that today. Got a couple of phone calls going out to some members of the Republican and the Democratic Party. Both of these guys are millennials. We'll give them a chance. We're going to give them our 5 questions that we ask here on Man Up America. I got 5. I'm going to ask the same 5 questions of those guys. Same 5 questions. You know what? I think it's the 5 questions that we've not heard in a presidential debate yet. Did you guys tune into the presidential debate? Wow, disastrous. I'm going to say this, and I think a lot of you would agree with me. My children are not allowed to watch the presidential debate right now. My son watched the first one, and it was part of his school project for middle school. The second one, I'm just not going to let him. I don't want my son to think of our government in the light in which the presidential debates have been aired. I want my son to think of constructive ways. If he's going to be involved in debate, and there's conflict in life, there are times where we have to argue. In fact, it was more of an argument than a debate. I want my child to know that there is substance to debate. So there's a couple of rules that I want to go down that I think they should implement in the presidential debate. But I also, here on Man Up America, this is our standard, guys. If you call in or if we call you and we're talking to you on this show, whether it's about hunting, fishing, automobiles, politics, whatever the case may be. Once again, this is a show about life. We're just in a political season. If we call you, there's a couple of rules for coming through discovery. Number one, anytime we don't know something, we go through a process of researching, right? And so I'm going to kind of break down how research works. Research begins with a hypothesis, right? The hypothesis says, I think something is so. So that's our hypothesis. That's the thing we think. But then we have to test that hypothesis. And it's important to know that those of you who work in research and those of you who don't, those of us who actually do published research, there's this thing called the null hypothesis. And the null hypothesis is simply this. It's the opposite of what you think. So we enter into any research, anything that we want to discover, with the idea that we could be first correct or B, incorrect. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that life? We're either right or we're wrong. So we go into research knowing that there's our two end caps. There's the polarity. We could be absolutely right or we could be absolutely wrong. And then our research tells us just how right or wrong we are. So that's what we're doing on this show. So rule number one is we're going to put that empirical model, that model of research onto our topics. If you don't like research, if you just want to hear a bunch of blowhards spit off an opinion, tune into a different show. If you just want to hear, you're going to get my opinion on this show. You have to. I'm hosting a show in which I occasionally have to give my opinion, but I'm trying to make a commitment to you to back up my opinion and to show you how I came to the conclusion I did. And I'll also be honest with you when I tell you my research is not done. My research is not done. I'm going to give you an example. I think, hypothesis, that Donald Trump's going to lose this election. I think, hypothesis, he's going to lose. I've come to that conclusion because of talking to delegates in swing states and looking at polls in swing states. And even the states where he's neck and neck, I look back at those states in the primary, and Donald underperformed every poll he had in those states. If the primary poll said he was going to pull 38%, he pulled 34%. Now, some of you are just focused on winning, and all you can think about, well, he won. But when the numbers are that close, so looking at the data that I'm looking at, I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win. Now, that's a hypothesis. The null hypothesis is he absolutely could win. And here's the evidence that he could win. The evidence that he could win is this. He's amazed me thus far. He's proven me wrong thus far. A lot of you take a great comfort in the fact that he's proven me wrong, which leads me to number two on this show. Number one is we're going to put a research model onto the topics we discuss. Number two is this. Do not shoot the mailman. Personal attack is the lowest form of debate. If I say to you, I think Donald Trump is going to lose, and your immediate response is, Adam, you're just bitter because Marco Rubio wasn't the nominee. Or, Adam, you're just not even truly a conservative. You have said nothing to rebut my point. You've said nothing to refute it. You've given no information to support why you think I'm wrong. All you've done is attack the other person, which is what we see in the presidential debates so often. Now, both of those guys are worthy of their criticism, and we'll go into that in the headlines. But on this show, you're not allowed to attack, whether it's me or someone else. If you're going to attack someone, you better say there's a reason why to attack. For instance, if we had, the famous Jimmy Swaggart, televangelist, on here, and he was making very clear opinions about not pursuing prostitution, it's pretty valid to say, yeah, but you're not one to have practiced that. That's a valid attack on a person. But what I'm saying to you is personal attack is not a substantive debate. You need to refute the points. You need to provide evidence on why the null hypothesis is correct. So when I say I don't think Donald Trump's going to win, it's not my wishes. It's based on the data, what I see. And if you point and say, you're wrong, Adam, you're wrong, well, that's fine, but you've not said why. Show me in your numbers why you think it's different. Now, some of you have. Some of you have given great justifications for why you think he's going to win. And I use that just as an example. So there's the second point. Third point on this show is we man up on issues. Our quest is for truth. It's not to advance an agenda. Listen, guys, I have my agendas. I've been very open with you. I'm a former elected Republican here in Bradley County. I'm still involved in the Republican Party. I consider myself a conservative. I have an agenda to see conservative ideas advanced in our community and in this country. But that doesn't mean that in the process of research, I don't consider other ideas. I consider other ideas. It's not that I'm sleeping with the devil. I consider other ideas because it's important for me to understand just exactly what other people think. And some of that's just human decency, guys. Some of that's human good. So without further ado, we're going to start up Man America this week. I'm excited about this week. We've got some great things coming up. We're going to invite in our guest, the shrink, Rob Alderman. Rob, have a seat here in the guest chair. You should have a headset over there. You're going to need it today because we're calling some people. And when we call some people, you're going to have to provide commentary. What do you think of that? How are you doing, Rob?
I'll do my best.
Speaking of that mic for me.
Yo, Man Up America.
I want to make sure everybody can hear the shrink.
Yeah.
So how goes it, Rob?
You know, man, if you weren't so bitter that Marco Rubio had lost the debate.
It's all about my
okay.
bitterness. Everyone who knows me best know that I walk around just a bitter person.
No, man, I'm good. You know what? I was blessed to take part in that social experiment over the weekend.
Well, and there's some good folks. Listen, if you're a member, on my personal page on Facebook, my personal page is private. That's no offense to the rest of you guys, but I reserve that for people I know. I don't like to get a lot of strangers who I haven't had a chance to have a cup of coffee with.
Yeah.
Because they need to understand. Text is deceiving, whether it's on Facebook or in a text message. It doesn't carry connotation. It doesn't often carry.
Yeah, there's no tone.
There's no tone to it. So you have to kind of anticipate the tone of the people on there. And most people know that I'm tongue-in-cheek. I do like profound questions. I do that because I like to see the responses. So, I've never that's not true. I have defriended one person the entire time I've been on Facebook.
I'm a purger.
You're a purger.
I'm like a goodbye 300 people at a time sometimes.
Are you really? See, I try not to do that.
You know what? It's because I wasn't careful in the early days, and I just friended anybody. It wasn't super careful. So, I thought that your the thread on your page this weekend was interesting. Did you notice I went into data collection mode like almost immediately? Are you a conservative?
We just talked about that. I don't know if you listened on the way over.
Yeah, I was listening.
That's the process. Here's my hypothesis. I'm going to test that hypothesis. You can't do that without data.
Yeah, somebody was asking me actually Slinky was asking me earlier today. He said, "Tell me about this Man Up America and why you and Adam would be on a show." I said, "I think because we argue good." I think because we both argue data rationally, right? We don't always come up to the same conclusions. I'm glad you're walking everybody through the null hypothesis because that's really the point, right? Like, let's collect the data. I said to you, ready, I'm going to throw down this gauntlet real quick. He doesn't know I'm going to do this. Okay. I said to you that I've been looking through all this research that suggests that the number of abortions go down during a Democratic pregnancy. And this is disturbing to me because I'm a conservative. Right? And I think that we can't spend all of our time trying to overturn Roe versus Wade when we could be spending a lot of our time and our resources lowering the number of actual abortions. No one wants to hear that. Nobody's going to want to hear that, right? And so I said to you offline the other day, you better get your research going. right?
It will, and I
that's
have.
why we're on the show together.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. We're actually going to spend a show on that one day. We're going to
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about
not
Roe
saying
v. Wade.
today, but I'm talking about when you were talking. Like that's what people don't understand about the show. That guy who was complaining on your Facebook page, you know, hopefully he's listening right now, Mr. Man. I'm the guy who asked you if you were a conservative. And anyway, you know, when he said
All of them good people. Nobody.
he was like, I can't stand this show. I mean, I like it, but I don't like it. And I said, so.
Perfect. It's the perfect
clear.
show.
Do you like it or you don't like it?
It's the perfect show for you. We want you to hate us in the right way.
Anyway,
because we pushed you, right?
We weren't trying. The show is not to tell you what to think. The show is to help you think, to be an advocate for thinking.
Yeah, I encourage thinking.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I want to put you through our headlines. Last week we had J-Rob on here, and she went through our headlines. So
Okay.
this week I've got some headlines. We're going to give about a 2-minute synopsis
Okay.
of the headlines. And obviously leading the headlines was what has happened since our last show, which was revelations that Hillary Clinton, in her WikiLeaked emails, was apparently doing pay-for-play.
Right.
In the process of doing pay-for-play, that Hillary Clinton, she just played favorites there. And the most revealing thing that I noticed in the headline about Hillary Clinton's leaked emails was that the lead singer of Blink-182 was having an exchange with her campaign guy over the existence of aliens. Did you see that headline?
Fantastic.
It is absolutely fantastic. So a big part of what Hillary was trying to hide is evidently she and her surrounding people believe in aliens,
Right.
and believe we should be preparing for this imminent threat.
And they share this with Blink-182.
And
guy.
Tom DeLonge
Yeah.
sent at least 2 emails to Hillary Clinton's campaign manager about the unexplained phenomenon that is unidentified flying objects.
Listen, we're getting to the serious stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the serious stuff.
I understand so much more about Hillary Clinton and her campaign.
Yeah.
Because if you believe that we are under attack not only by ISIS but by an alien race,
Yeah.
that dramatically affects your policy position.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you're working around.
Is this why Barack Obama is unconcerned with the amount of national debt that we have?
I
Because
think
it'll never get
He's got
paid.
some other stuff on his mind. He's got some UFOs on his mind right now. I think that the American public, staying within this 2-minute piece, because of all the hullabaloo with Trump's Tic Tacs, is that the WikiLeaks thing isn't going to get as much attention as it actually deserves. There's actually a lot of stuff going on in that release.
Well, that brings me to the second headline, which was obviously the quote-unquote locker room banter of Donald Trump. And this is what started the conversation on Facebook this weekend, because I asked a very, a profound questions. Will conservatives find their soul? And it was a loaded question, but
profound. This deeply original and unique post.
Yeah, well, I was asking a very simple question.
Yeah.
Really, does this matter?
Right.
Yeah, that's really the heart of that question. And people said yes, people said no. And this is what I'll say, and I actually mentioned this on the thread, and for those of you who did not tune in this weekend, because it is fall break for a lot of people, Donald Trump was caught saying some very, grotesque and inappropriate things about how he treats women.
Has a woman's private parts been spoken about so much across America?
Well, exactly. It was very, number one, it's funny to see all the professional athletes saying, "I've never heard that in the locker room. It's not how we talk." You know, so there's kind of some. We'll get.
Everybody's righteous now, brother.
Well, we'll get some comments about not liking aliens or something like that. Comments, manuptalk@gmail.com. Send them on. Yeah. Or hit us on Facebook at manuptalk.
I was thinking about the guy who said that we're too PC on your Facebook thread, and I thought, like, when we got to this point, like, how far was this going to go? Like I don't feel comfortable quoting Trump.
Well, I'm not quoting him. Anybody can Google it and look
That's
it up.
what I'm saying. But this is kind of my point. That kind of tells you, when it's you and me on here and we don't
want to say
it, that tells you how bad it was.
Okay, so my oldest son one time.
So quit acting like it's not bad.
Yeah, I feel like him.
Okay, sorry, I had to scream that. Everybody on the Facebook thread, quit acting like this isn't a thing. We can't say it.
Well, one time my oldest son got caught saying some potty words, and I was asking him to tell me what he said, and this like red flush embarrassment just overtakes him, and he's not going to say it to me. And that's kind of how I feel about this.
Yeah, we're not going to say
I'm
this
just
to
not
you.
going to say it. I've never said that. I wouldn't say that. And I think what Democrats are saying is it's very revealing to how he thinks about women. It's not so much what he said, but what it reveals about how he sees the world.
I think more importantly, it's not what the Democrats think about him at all. I think it is that conservative, evangelical, grand old party folks are now kind of having to say, look, it was never really about his character to begin with. It's just that do I want this guy picking the Supreme Court judges or do I want her? Because let's face it, he's vile.
Well, and that's kind of
that's what I'm saying. That's the big split.
Yeah,
now.
the most honest argument I saw this weekend was from a friend who said, I understand I'm nominating a pompous jerk, but he's going to fix the country. He's so egotistical, such an egomaniac that he's not going to fail at that.
Right, yeah. And that's like, I think that's in my opinion, just my opinion, got my own hypothesis going on about a lot of this stuff, is that's the best, that's the most balanced thing is for people to say, I hate this, like I'm choosing the lesser of two evils, right? I can't stand it when people say that. Instead, let's say, what is it about this candidate that you perceive to be good on a platform level, or in this case, the anti-platform, right, that kind of Trump seems to represent, and go for that. Go for that.
I'm going to give you a personal story, and then we're going to move on in the headlines.
Okay.
But I remember I was in high school one time, and I used I used an inappropriate word. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a really bad a word. Yeah. It was in reference to raising hell, which I think is safe to say on this show. But I used that word.
Surely we can say that.
Which was the most colorful.
Now we can say almost anything.
Almost anything. But I said
higher.
that to a teacher. She'd accused me of doing something, and I said, well, if you're just going to falsely accuse me, what's to prevent me from raising hell? And I got suspended for 3 days for profanity.
Yeah.
In school. This was a 3-day suspension. To the contrary, the backup quarterback to the football team, whose father was a booster, who came from a very wealthy family that did construction in the community, cussed a teacher out and got half a day in-school suspension not a week later.
Right.
And this is something that became apparent to me. It matters how much money you have.
Right.
And for anybody who wants to say it doesn't, it does.
Yeah.
If you are of wealthy means in this country, you can say things like Donald Trump said, and the consequences are not nearly as dire as somebody who would say that in a workplace and be fired.
One of the things I saw that was so funny, I know we're moving on, but this is really all that's on anybody's brains, so let's give it the moment, right? I saw this guy who said he had 2 video clips, and he said, do you remember when this disqualified you from being president? And he played the clip of it was a Kane. Who was the guy who said, and we're going to go to Minnesota, and we're going to go to Wisconsin, all the
Howard
way
Dean,
all the way to the White House, like this, And he was like, do you remember when that was not presidential? And your race is over. Remember that? Like
Michael Dukakis saying that he would not support the death penalty for someone who raped Kitty Dukakis.
Yeah, it's like it's the end of it's the complete end of your race, right? And then he played the Trump clip, and he goes, but now, like, people are arguing like it's not that bad. This isn't that big a deal.
Hey, Mr. Cameraman, if you can hear me out there, WTNB, we've got a camera down. Camera down. If y'all keep seeing it go to black screen, we've got a camera down. But you can still hear us.
Yeah, anyway. So I just wanted to say that, I walked through this office earlier, and there was a camera guy, but he's like in the lunch break room, I think.
Well, there you
sandwich.
Go. I don't know why we lost the camera.
It's doubtful our camera's coming back.
Well, I'll get it during the commercial break.
Anyway, the point is, we remember when Dean yelled about going to the White House, and the next day he was over.
And he was over.
But Trump can take his Tic Tacs, and he can talk about some things that we can't even say on this show, and everybody is like, let's do this.
All right, so here's our next headline, which is kind of related to this, but it's related to politics. Since our last political headline.
Yeah.
Amazing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. a liberal Supreme Court justice who, since Justice Scalia died, I think he was probably, they were on different sides of the aisle, but they were dear friends.
Yeah, they were
I
dear
think
friends.
he was probably the person that would say, I wouldn't say that, and she said that to him. Well, now he's passed, and she comes out and pretty much calls Colin Kaepernick and all the professional athletes protesting dumb.
Right,
Says it's dumb, and it's so this is a liberal Supreme Court justice condemning that behavior, which was amazing.
Well, everybody's got an opinion on it, right?
Everybody's got an opinion.
I mean, that's the thing. This is more people are probably fussing about Colin Kaepernick than about the WikiLeaks or Trump, right? Like the other two headlines of all this, the longest legs has been for Kaepernick. It's been just going on and on and on.
Yeah, it's getting selling a lot of jerseys.
Yeah.
So the next headline is, and I know you quit watching, but they released a video this weekend of the Walking Dead premiere coming up.
No, I went back and watched it.
You did? Okay.
I went back and watched it.
I do watch The Walking Dead, and I don't think it's a coincidence that The Walking Dead has been so popular over the past 6 years, leading into what likely is going to be our reality after one of these people is elected. Right. I think that we've been trained. I think the Lord shined His favor upon us and said they need to know how to live and be self.
We've had this little preview with clowns.
Yeah, that's right.
So like we're kind of figuring it out. We may be on our own down here.
Now, not to go back to the clown thing, but I did see a great little headline this weekend that says authorities suspect clown presence to increase as Halloween approaches. And I'm thinking, really? Who's that bright guy that came to that conclusion?
No, I watched the Walking Dead preview because you had mentioned, you'd just mentioned it in our text messages, and so I went back and I watched it.
And so I'm pretty excited. It's not not this weekend, but next weekend, the Walking Dead premiere. We're going to talk a little TV
intense
on the show, and I think what I like. There's a lot I like about the Walking Dead. There's things that I don't like, but for those of you who are fans, which evidently a lot of you are.
It's huge, right? I mean, I don't know if it's the #1 show in America, but it's got to be close.
It's got to be.
It's got to be close. It's like one of those that ends up being too much for me.
Really?
Man, you can.
But you watch Stranger Things. How is that not too much?
I used to read the comic books for The Walking Dead, and it would take a while to recover. Like, it was so dark. And I feel like the show, that's just one more thing in my life that is too intense.
Just too dark.
I don't like it when there's going to be someone I like that has to die every episode.
Which is pretty much what's built around this whole premiere.
Yeah.
Is we're trying to find out who's no longer
They're
with
already
us.
dead. Yeah, they're already dead.
It's kind of like going to the high school reunions before Facebook. You're trying to find out who's still with you.
I've got an opinion.
Okay.
I think it's two people that are dead. Okay.
Wow.
And I think that it is Abraham and Glenn, and I think they're dead.
I do too. I think both outlived their usefulness.
And then I think that Negan is about to chop off Rick's hand with an axe in that RV. Like, no other reason to ask for the axe.
Unless you're going to chop something.
And then no reason, right? No reason to give a speech about right hands.
Which is the comic book history, too.
Right. So at this point in the comic book, his hand would have already been gone.
Yeah, the governor cut it off.
The governor already would have cut off Rick's hand. So he's kept his hand longer, right, than he had planned to.
Well, we just lost half of our audience talking about The Walking Dead, so let's get them back.
Did we really?
Our last headline.
How do we know?
I've got a little ticker over here. Which
really? We talked about the Walking Dead and we lost half the people? That's incredible.
We'll get them back with this.
Back to Tic Tacs it is.
The Boston Red Sox are out of the playoffs, swept by the Indians.
Yes.
Now, I have an interview, which we're going to play, not today, but with Darren Holmes, who's the bullpen coach of the Rockies, and he actually predicted the Red Sox and the Cubs in the World Series, and that's already shot.
I have thought it would be the Indians and the Cubs, and I still believe that.
Indians and the Cubs?
Yeah.
We will see.
I think it's Cleveland and Chicago. In the World Series, obviously, in extra innings last night, the Cubs couldn't get it done. But Cubbies, you know what? This is the only unfavorable matchup in the playoffs for the Cubs. Let me say this. It's the most unfavorable matchup because the Giants' bullpen on fire is probably equal to the Cubs, and we saw that last night. They were able to just keep throwing and keep throwing and keep throwing late. But I think if you're a Cubs fan, which I am, you take heart in, we got tonight, and then they still got to bring it back to Chicago. So I feel pretty good that we're going to get out of this, which is our worst matchup, and then head into favorable matchup.
I saw the Cubs play earlier this year. They did lose that game to the Reds, but still an impressive outfit. We're going to go to commercial break. I'm going to fix a camera, and then we'll be back live right here on WTNB Talk 101.3. You're listening to Man Up America. The good Dr. J. Adam here, talking to all the gentlemen out there. For those of you with wives, girlfriends, even mothers, which would make all of you, you need to call 423-472-8887 and talk to the good folks at Bliss Day Spa. Nothing says I love you like the special treatment, the VIP treatment of the services of Bliss Day Spa. Call them today, 423-472-8887. Tell them the good doctor sent you from Man Up America. Are you looking to refinance your home, or perhaps you're in the market to actually purchase? Take it from the good Dr. J. Adam. There's no need to go far and wide to look for mortgage help. Call 339-8086, Home Mortgage Solutions, LLC, right here in Cleveland. Their team's prepared to help you with lending, with refi options. Just give them a call, 339-8086, and tell them the good Dr. J. Adams sent you.
Woodman Life has been keeping its promises to members for more than 100 years. That means we've survived the Great Depression, Black Friday, and all the other ups and downs our economy has faced. In good times and bad, we're strong and stable. We're an organization your family can count on. At Woodman Life, we've always believed that slow and steady really does win the race. Our conservative investment philosophies are just one part of the strength of our organization. What really makes Woodman Life strong is the trust and loyalty of our members.
Contact your local Woodman representative today by calling 423-790-2847. With 3 offices serving Southeast Tennessee, your Woodman representative standing by to help you.
Woodman of the World Life Insurance Society of Omaha, Nebraska. Woodman Life, standing strong for generations.
The good Dr. J. Adam here, talking to all the gentlemen out there. For those of you with wives, girlfriends, even mothers, which would make all of you, you need to call 423-472-8887 and talk to the good folks at Bliss Day Spa. Nothing says I love you like the special treatment, the VIP treatment of the services of Bliss Day Spa. Call them today, 423-472-8887. Tell them the good doctor sent you from Man Up America. Begin your financial career today with Woodman Life by calling 423-790-2847. The good doctor. All right, we're back here on Man Up America, Talk 101.3 The Buzz, live from WTNB Studios. That's Charter Channel 5, digital TV station 27.1. I can believe you can get us on Comcast, too.
Like Channel 5, right?
Like Channel 210, Charter Channel 5.
Charter Channel 5. I'm sorry, Charter. I didn't mean to get that wrong. I'm just trying to be helpful.
Rob, we got a new segment today called 5 Questions. We're going to motor through this because I'm going to call the chairman of the Bradley County GOP, Adam Lewis. We're going to get him on the phone. We're going to call Adam Lewis.
He's going to pay the piper now, Douglas.
Now, I am going to ask him our 5 questions.
Yeah. Douglas.
Hello?
Adam Lewis, this is Man Up America.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. On the phone with us is Adam Lewis. He's the chairman of the GOP here in Bradley County. Adam Lewis, we're going to put you on our segment called 5 Questions. We're going to ask these 5 questions. You've got 30 seconds to respond, and we will buzz you if you're wrong.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking.
So it's a right or wrong answer?
There are no right or wrong answers on Man Up America. There are only hypotheses and null hypothesis.
Douglas, there are definitely right or wrong situations to find yourself in, like being on the other end of a phone with Adam and Rob.
Yeah, I'm gathering that quickly.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. Now, Adam, you're the chairman of the GOP. Donald Trump is your nominee. Why do most Americans dislike Donald Trump?
Why do most Americans dislike Donald Trump? Based on a poll, most Americans?
Yeah, all the polls show that both candidates. If you ask people, do they like Donald Trump? Most of them say no. If you ask people, do they like Hillary Clinton? Most of them say no. Why do most Americans dislike the GOP candidate?
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head. But most people I've talked to, regardless of their party affiliation, are unhappy with both candidates. I think that when we look at Donald Trump in particular, he's been incredibly divisive with some of the things that he's said. Obviously, with some of the recent news that has come out, it's tough to be a likable guy when you have the news that's come out that he's had recently. So I think that it's a pretty simple answer. I wish it was a little more complex than that.
Well,
what is that simple answer?
Well, simple answer. You can't. If you're going to say bad things, people aren't going to be happy with you.
There you go.
Well,
When you say bad things, people aren't happy with you. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right?
straight from the mouth of Papa Lewis.
No, I like that.
When
Douglas
you say
is on
bad
point.
things, people don't like you.
That's right.
Here, Man Up America. There you go.
I like it.
All
I
right.
could go into a much more complex dissertation about that. But,
30 seconds,
I've only got
Lewis.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right. Question number 2. What issues motivate you to be a Republican?
What issues motivate me?
Mm-hmm.
I think first and foremost, I appreciate the stance that the Republican Party takes on the issue of life. For me, I hesitate to say that I'm a one-issue voter, but if there were one issue, and I believe this is the issue to set as a litmus test, that is predominantly why I choose to affiliate with the Republican Party. There are a number of other issues as far as being a conservative is concerned that I think the Republican Party does a better job in how they create and implement policy than the Democratic Party does. But by and large, I'm a Republican because the Republican Party stands for life.
All righty. Now, why are millennials important to the GOP?
Well, I think any generation is important to a movement, whether it be the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And as we go through this election cycle, you hear a lot about millennials and women and these people groups. I think that like the baby boomers, the large group that we talk about with the older demographic, the millennials are the next major group. There are also folks that are just now getting to the place where they can vote and are just now able to affect the process. Back to a simple answer, the children are our future, right? And I think that the millennials, as they come into their own, represent that right now for us.
This is kind of the grand tour question, but what is at stake this election?
Oh, goodness. What is at stake? Well, I think, one of the things that pops up for me
Other
is
than the
obviously
entire future of the GOP, what's at stake?
Or that,
I
if you want to
think,
mention it.
the future appointments to the Supreme Court obviously hang in the balance. The next president will nominate anywhere from 2 to 3 individuals to sit on the Supreme Court, and as much as I don't like, you can point back to recent decisions just within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. The Supreme Court has a lot of power, and they control a lot of what's allowed to continue or what has to stop, even at the state level. So I think for me, one of the big issues as we look towards this election is who will have the power and have the opportunity to nominate Supreme Court justices.
Last question for Chairman of the GOP, Adam Lewis. Are your candidates' actions excusable?
Absolutely not. I mean, which one? Let me ask that.
How many candidates do you have in this election?
I think he means how many things are unexcusable.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Just the candidate, explain what you mean.
Let's take the tape. All right, the Donald Trump tapes. Okay, absolutely not. Is it inexcusable? It is inexcusable. I cannot defend those comments. Donald Trump himself is not defending those comments. So I would not stand here and say that he deserves to have any opinion other than the opinion that's been expressed, as you said, by a majority of Americans that they're displeased with actions and words like that.
Chairman Lewis, thank you for joining us on 5 Questions on Man Up America. We now get to call your counterpart over at the DNC and ask the same question. So you might want to tune in to see if they answer better than you. I don't know if they're the chairman, but he was a delegate. Blake Kitterman. We're calling Blake Kitterman next.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. I will.
Thanks, Douglas.
So, quick answers.
That's good.
Pappy Lewis says,
hey, listen, man. I like this let's not excuse it thing.
Well, we're going to
get on with our lives.
We're going to ask the same questions. I'm calling Blake Kitterman, who was a delegate to the DNC this year, and I don't know if he was a Bernie guy, but let's ask him.
We should ask him.
Let's ask him. His Facebook page even says Delegate Blake Kitterman.
Yeah,
he takes a lot of pride in that delegate thing.
You would have, right? Weren't you?
Well, I was, but I didn't quite change the Facebook.
But, I mean, you made a whole video series.
It was awesome.
Hey.
Is this Delegate Blake Kitterman?
This is Delegate Blake Kitterman.
Delegate Blake Kitterman, you're on Man Up America. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm about to go take a test in a little bit, so I'm doing as well as I can.
All right. Well, this is going to
be... I'd be on here rather than study.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, we know that your priorities are in order going into this interview. Listen, we got a segment called 5 Questions. I'm going to ask you 5 questions to give our listeners some background here. Blake Kitterman was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention, and you went as a delegate for who?
I went for Hillary Clinton, also known as the next president of the United States.
Look at there. He's still getting the talking points.
Okay.
It's still getting the talking points.
You're an excellent company man, Blake. Let's move on with 5 questions.
All right, 5 questions. All right, Blake, you were at the DNC. Now, I've talked a little bit on this show about being at the RNC, and I know it's obviously this was your first convention, right?
Yeah, this was.
An experience of a lifetime, I bet.
It really was. It was amazing.
Okay. Now, at the GOP convention, there was a lot of flag burning. Did you see a flag burning?
I did not see any flag burning at all.
I mean, the GOP wasn't burning flags, but people were burning flags outside the GOP.
Yeah, I did not see any flag burning, and I was traversing through Philadelphia practically all day. I didn't see anybody burning flags.
Well, there you go. There's the difference between the GOP and the DNC. If anybody asks you what the difference is, it's flag burning.
It's just the flag burning, yeah.
If it's just flag burning. All right, question number 1, Blake. Why do most Americans dislike your candidate?
I think that's a tricky question. I don't think that's a valid statement to say that most Americans dislike the candidate. I think people are just
No.
We're pragmatic here.
Every major poll, every
shows
sample.
that the majority of Americans dislike your candidate.
Well, I guess the same can be also said about Trump.
We asked that same question, but don't deflect.
Yeah, don't deflect. We
wouldn't let the Republicans deflect.
We just asked the
neither
Republicans
candidate is
the same
necessarily really favorable in people's minds.
But why do they dislike your candidate? Now, the GOP answer, I asked them the same question about Trump. They answered it. Why do people dislike your candidate, Hillary Clinton?
I think the points that she's brought up is that, and I think there's a multitude of reasons of why someone can dislike someone, and I can't speak to the broad-based answer, but I think there's some issues that people have with her relatability. I mean, she's been someone who has been in the public eye for 20, 30 years, and so you kind of develop that political-based reputation, and people don't feel connected with their political leaders, and it kind of stimulates that dislike. I mean, we saw America's disinvestment and distrust of politicians directly after the Watergate scandal, and it's only gotten worse since. So the name politician fixated onto a candidate inevitably leads to their reputational downfall.
So
and I guess
think
you
it's
have
an issue of perception,
more or
not
less. I would say.
substance. Is
I
there
mean,
a
if we're talking
substantive
about
reason that?
partisan, if we're talking about ideological reasons, then of course I can understand why people more conservative don't necessarily like her because it's partisan based. Just like I don't necessarily like the views of Paul Ryan. So I guess it's multifaceted, is what I'm trying to say. But I think from what I hear from people and what I heard from the Bernie Sanders delegates is the establishment. It's the attribution to the party for so long and the government.
All right, question number 2, Blake. What issues motivate you to be a Democrat?
Well, I guess one of the biggest issues, and this is an issue that we see even locally in Bradley County, is LGBTQ plus rights. I mean, I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and we live in a state that doesn't really support that. And so whenever I first started the Young Democrats, it was based on the idea that you can come to this place and it'd be a safe haven for you, no matter who you are, your creed, your orientation, your identification, etc. So that was really a motivation for me, and something that has really motivated my studies here at UTC as well, especially LGBTQ plus youth homelessness, which is a major epidemic. Another thing that's also heavily affected me is research in all areas of medicine. My cousin has a severe case of autism, and I have a really close friend who suffers from, I believe it's stage 4 breast cancer. And so how we're being able to take care of these people who are suffering from these illnesses and such, and finding the necessary treatments for them. So I guess those would be the primary issues.
Why do you think millennials are important?
Millennials are important because they're the people who are going to pick up the pace of the party and push it forward. I know I'll speak to the Republicans on this one. There was a huge Marco Rubio effort amongst the millennials here because he appealed to their base. He spoke for this new generation of people. The same could be said about people in the Democratic Party, like Bernie Sanders, whose more liberal message appealed to the more progressive millennial generation. Millennials are important because we're dealing with an era that is ever changing and ever shifting. Technology is constantly being updated, and this generation specifically has been accustomed to that rapid change. And so how will we meet the demands of the future? And we're seeing that play out in this election and how the candidates are responding to that. So
we got 2 more questions. We're a little short on time. Grand Tour question here. What is at stake this election?
I think several things are at stake. I mean, the fact that if Trump gets elected and he does what he says he does, I probably won't be able to get married because of the Supreme Court decision. The same about women's rights. If Hillary gets elected, on the flip side, Medicaid expansion so that the 280,000 Tennesseans that the state legislature denied healthcare access to will finally be able to have their opportunity to get that. I know we're short on time, so I can go through like an hour list of answers, but there's the top ones that came to my mind.
All right. Well, let me ask you the final question.
Okay.
Based on the criticisms related to the emails and what happened with Benghazi, and the subsequent response and performance in debates, are your candidates' actions excusable? I guess this is something where we're going to have to disagree. I think she definitely did. She apologized for the mistake with using the private email server. As far as whether it's excusable or not, I think she's the most prepared, most qualified person in the race. Now, I can't really think of much to excuse. I mean, I watched the testimonies about Benghazi. I know we all had questions. And definitely, I hope there will be more safety precautions at the other embassies in the future. But I think everything that I've seen has really
disappointed that she is ready to take on the global stage and the economy that we're currently in.
Well, Blake, you've made it through 5 questions on Men Up America. We got a jet because we got to close this program. We appreciate your time, sir.
Goodbye, Blake.
Thank you so much, Adam. Have a good one, y'all.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, you heard it directly from Blake. We'll follow up on this tomorrow, Rob. There was a lot said in those 2 interviews, but we're short on time, and we actually got to run.
It's what we got to do.
Tune in tomorrow at 1 o'clock, live here on WTNB. We will be here. Talk 101.3 The Buzz. We want you to tune in to Man Up America. We're going to talk a little bit about the 5 questions interviews. Evidently, both candidates have apologized, so everything's excusable.
It's all good when you say sorry.
Just say, I'm sorry. And I'm just going to print a shirt that says, I'm sorry, America.
Yeah, I'm sorry, America.
There's a hidden meaning there. Special thank you to Bliss Day Spa, Stage ABL, the venue, Creekside Home Mortgage Solutions. Woo! Talk 101.3 The Buzz, Man Up America, and we're out.